My father, Robert, was a small man, about 5 feet 6 inches tall. It's amazing that he grew to even be that tall, given the circumstances of his birth. Daddy was born in August 1914, many years before babies were born in hospitals. He was born prematurely. I don't know exactly how premature he was or how much he weighed, but the day his mother started labor pains, Lenny and John knew that was not a good sign for them nor their soon-to-be firstborn child. Babies back then did not often survive if they were born before full term. It happens that my grandfather had heard about a woman who was a midwife who lived in Asheville. He left Lenny in the care of one of her family members who lived close by and headed off on his horse to Asheville to persuade this particular midwife to come and help. He had heard that this particular midwife had been successful in saving the life of another baby who was born prematurely. After several hours, John returned with the midwife. Robert had not yet been born, but Lenny was still in labor. Soon, Robert was born. The first thing the midwife did after cleaning Robert was to put him in an open, wide-mouthed gallon jar, partially submerge that jar with baby inside in a large dishpan of warm water, and put it on the windowsill in the sunshine. Ingenious. An incubator. Robert stayed there in that ingeniously engineered incubator for a couple of weeks, only being taken out to be rocked, fed a small amount of breast milk and water, and diapered. Diapers back then for poor families living in rural areas were handmade of leftover cotton cloth. Had Daddy not been born in August, during a hot, sunny time of year, and had this midwife not known to put that dishpan holding my future daddy in the sunshine, in that windowsill, in that ingenious incubator, Daddy would surely not have survived his premature birth. But God had a plan, and he was working his plan. I've often wished that I knew the name of this midwife. After all, she not only saved Robert's life as a baby, but by doing so, she had also saved mine. I would not even be here if it had not been for her. As a young child, I remember each and every day waiting for my daddy to come home from his job at the furniture factory. I would stand at the window in our den, looking out the window to spot him coming up the dirt road, driving up our driveway, and parking the car. He wore green or khaki work pants and a plaid or striped shirt, short-sleeved in summer and long-sleeved flannel shirt in the winter. He always had a thermos in his hand and a folded paper bag that had held a lunch for the day. In the winter months, his work jacket was zipped and he often wore a cap. And when it was really cold, he has the flaps pulled down over his ears. He walked really fast to get inside the back door where he always put down his thermos and brown paper bag on the kitchen cabinet right inside the door, and kissed Mama, picked me up, and hugged and kissed me as well. This small stature man was a giant in my eyes. He was my father, Robert Hugh Morrison. Daddy's mother died of pneumonia when he was 10. He had a younger sister, Bertha, and a younger brother, Gordon. His father moved from Edneyville to Bayton with the 3 children to live with Grandma Morrison after Daddy's mother died. These were difficult years for the family, although Daddy never talked too much about these times. I could tell that things were really hard for all of them. My father, as the eldest, bore much of the burden of caring for his younger brother and sister. I regret that I didn't probe more about those times, but Daddy often said that his mother's one dying wish was that his father would keep the family together. Apparently, in that day and time, it was customary if the mother died to split the family up, and one or more of the children would go and live with other relatives. Daddy always said that all efforts were made to see to it that Lenny Morrison's last wishes were satisfied, even if that meant many sacrifices, and it did. One of those sacrifices was made by my grandpa John Morrison when he pulled up stakes and moved Robert, Gordon, and Bertha from their home that he and Lenny Morrison had made in Edneyville, North Carolina, to Bayton, North Carolina, in Caldwell County, about 75 miles away. Daddy once told me of the day that they packed up all of their belongings and put them in a horse-drawn wagon. They put quilts down on the wagon bed for the 3 children to sit on. My grandpa Morrison drove that handmade horse-drawn wagon containing his 3 children in the wagon, containing all their earthly belongings. I'm quite certain that having this experience made my father appreciate his wife and daughter even more. I know he wanted to give his family a better life than he had, due to many circumstances beyond his or his family's control. One of those circumstances visited the Morrison family, as it did most American families, World War II. Daddy and his younger brother Gordon both served in this war. During Daddy's early years, he went to Chesterfield School, was in the Civilian Conservation Corps, worked on the family farm, and worked for a lumber company before he entered the Army. Daddy entered service in the U.S. Army in August 1941, just before his 27th birthday. He took his basic training at Camp Croft, South Carolina. In December of 1941, he was sent to Panama, where he received 13 months of jungle training. In January 1943, he was transferred to the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations. He seldom talked about his days in the Army, but when he did, he would say that if he could go back anywhere, he'd like to go back to see some of the beautiful parts of Australia. Daddy had kept several photos over the years, and there were several photos that we occasionally pulled out and looked at of Daddy's Army days in New Guinea. Daddy never talked about his Army medals or his awards either. But as a small child, I accidentally learned that my daddy was an excellent sharpshooter. One day he walked in the door with a big grin on his face and a beautiful wooden walnut box in his arms. He looked across the kitchen at my mother, standing at the kitchen counter, preparing dinner. He then walked over to her and said, "Honey, I have a surprise for you." Mama looked up, turned to him with a big smile, quickly dried her hands as he sat the walnut box down on the surface of the kitchen cabinet top. As he encouraged her to go ahead and open it, he looked at her face. It appeared from his eyes locked onto her face that he didn't want to miss a single instance of her surprise, and neither did I. As she opened the lid, she practically gasped for breath as she exclaimed, "A set of silver!" She had always wanted a better set of tableware for Sunday dinners, and now she had an 8-piece place setting of silverware to dress up our Sunday dinner table. She gave my daddy a big hug and a big kiss as I reached over and wrapped my small arms around both of their legs so I could also get in on this group hug. Of course, Mama wanted to know how he got this wonderful gift. He told her that he won it in a sharpshooting contest. He was absolutely on cloud 9 that he was able to surprise my mama with this complete set of silverware. I expect he was also happy that he was able to use a skill he mastered in the Army for something pleasant in civilian life. As I grew older, I learned that Daddy was awarded the Combat Infantryman's Badge for serving in actual combat in 2 campaigns. While Daddy was on a 30-day temporary pass to the United States for rest and recuperation early in 1945, a wonderful thing happened. He met his future wife, Vera, but also a very bad thing happened. He became ill with malaria. He then had to be hospitalized at the Veterans Hospital near Asheville, North Carolina. So he was stationed at the Moore General Hospital in Swannanoa, North Carolina, where he was treated for several months.